Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. I live in central New Hampshire and I garden in zone 5B. It is now the middle of March and I am surrounded by plants and I'm loving life. It's a wonderful feeling. I wanted to give you a tour of how all my awesome plants are looking. So join me today as I give you this tour. And make sure you subscribe and like my videos to follow along the journey for all of these plants. So I have thousands, and I mean thousands of plants growing, and I still have more coming, which is a big reason why I got my lettuce and ranunculus, as well as pansies, brought outside to start hardening off, for the simple reason that they're happier out there, but also I needed more room. And please make sure to watch a video that I made recently on how we expanded our existing grow light systems, because that helped solve the issue I was running into also, which was running out of space under my grow lights. So all of my peppers that I started from seed were started on February 5th. And over here I have 6 California bell peppers. And then I have a total of 18 of these mild jalapeno pepper plants. And in the center, all nice and snug, is a little tiny succulent that I got also from my daughter from college. And I'm not sure if you can actually see the roots, but it is rooting. So she was very excited to see that I was able to get her a little teeny tiny plant to keep living. I'm very excited about that. So I like nice spicy hot peppers. My daughter likes the more milder peppers. So I'm growing both. Over here, we have orange bell peppers. So I have 12 that are growing here. And then we have mild jalapeno peppers right here. So there's 6 of those. And then a nice, beautiful purple bell pepper. I have 6 of those. And I probably planted too many habanero peppers, but I do have a friend that enjoys habaneros as well. So I will be sharing some with her. I have a total of 12 habanero peppers here. I do have more of these types of peppers growing. They are small, on the smaller side. So they're still in small 6-packs, but since these plants were getting larger, I ended up putting these into a larger 6-pack. And eventually the other peppers will graduate to this size pot. So here I have such an adorable little orange hat micro tomato. I planted 5 of these. I grew 3 of them about a few months ago, and then I succession planted and planted 2 additional plants. So that's why I have a total of 5, and I've gotten so many tomatoes out of my plants. It's been wonderful. So these are the 2 newest ones that I planted, and you can see that they are just starting to form little baby tomatoes all over. Here I have a Mary Washington asparagus plant, and if you look at it, it actually looks like a little asparagus plant that's growing. It's so cute. So I planted a total of 26 of these Mary Washington asparagus plants. I started the seeds on February 2nd, and the way it works with asparagus is they need a lot of room, and you really don't want to be harvesting from the plants until their 3rd year. I did plant some asparagus seeds out last year, so I'm also in a way succession planting my asparagus. So these little guys, I'll have to wait a few years before I can take asparagus from them. But I do have older plants that I should be able to harvest from this year, which I'm so excited about. So what we're looking at here is called the 10-week fragrant stalk. And this stalk has a really nice perfume smell to it. And I started this stalk on February 13th. I am planning on potting them up because the pots that they're in right now are quite small. So I don't see the roots popping out from the bottom, but I know that I did that last year and the plants were generally happier. Stalk is one of those plants that likes cool weather. So once I pot up these stock plants, I will be bringing them outside to start hardening off because they will do better outside than they are inside right now. This is a column stalk. I started on February 13th. It's not quite a full tray, but I have 60 nice healthy plants here. And this, and then I also have mixed in here 15 of the fragrant 10-week stalks as well. So what I am planning on doing is, again, if I didn't mention it already, I'm planning on potting these up into 3-inch pots. But these two like nice cool weather, so they will be going out within the next few weeks. And with stock, I know a lot of people prefer the double variety of stock and not the single variety. Since I'm not using the cut flowers for selling, I'm just using it for my own garden. I honestly like the single or the double stock. I'm perfectly fine with either one. Here I have about 60 Chanter Alto red stock. I started these on February 13th. Aren't they cute? I clearly love stock. I have about 37 of the Chanter Alto pink stock here. Same thing. I started them on February 13th. When you've gone out to buy seeds, did you ever notice the cat grass that they sell? Have you tried to grow cat grass for your cats if you have cats? Well, I have. And when you buy a little tiny packet of the grass seeds, the cat grass seeds, that is, they only go so far. The cats eat all the grass, and then you got to plant more, and before you know it, you're out of your cat grass seeds, which they're basically just oats. That's what those seeds are. Well, these I started on March 10th, and I bought a huge, and I mean a huge bag of oat seeds. And I've been growing cat grass for years. So it's one way that I've been able to save money. My cats are really happy about it. And I may end up showing you a video on how I went about growing my cat grass. And maybe you can even watch my cats enjoying their cat grass. We'll see. This is a special plant that I have. Her name is Winnie. She's kind of shy though. She really doesn't want to show her face. Let me see if I can get her to look. Say hello to Winnie, everyone. She just wants cat grass. So far I've shown you some of the plants that I started from seed. I still have plenty more to show you. One thing I want to mention is if you want to come back to this video in the future, or you want to just follow along in the journey with all my plants, and once I get outside in my yard, definitely make sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and tell your friends. I really enjoy showing all of this that I'm learning and teaching, and I want you to become a better gardener as well. So I'm just giving you a view of all my plants, how happy they are under my lights. And in the corner here, what I'm showing you are some Amaryllis. There's one blooming right now, as you can see, and the other ones are not blooming anymore. What I plan on doing with those, and I will show it in a video, is those are going to go out into my yard in this late spring, early summer, and they're going to live out in the garden until a certain date when I will bring them in. I will put them in dormancy, and I will grow them again for next winter. So I'll be sure to show you that whole process on how to take care of Amaryllis bulbs. You might notice that I do have yellow sticky traps, and the reason for that is fungus gnats. They tend to be a problem, I think, with anyone that's starting their seeds indoors. Fortunately, I would say I do not have a huge problem with it at all. I wouldn't say it's an infestation, but I am using them just to kind of gauge and monitor how many fungus gnats I do have. I use them to basically get the adult fungus gnats. They are attracted to the yellow color, and they stick to that yellow. They do not get, the yellow sticky traps do not get rid of the fungus gnat eggs. So in conjunction with using these sticky traps, I also use something called mosquito bits. And I dilute those mosquito bits with water. So every time when I every time when I water my seedlings, I also give them that solution with the mosquito bits. I bottom water all of my seedlings. I use Miracle-Gro, and I fertilize my plants at half the strength of Miracle-Gro every week. I only do it once a week. It typically falls on the weekend. I recommend that you do that. If you're going to fertilize, try to pick a day of the week that's good for you. For me, it tends to be the weekend. So I'm just continuing to show you the progress of all my plants. I feel like they look pretty healthy. They're very happy, considering we still have a lot of snow on the ground. I'd love to know what plants you currently have growing under your grow lights or in your greenhouse. Please be sure to make a comment on this video and let me know what you have growing. And if you have any questions about what I'm growing, please feel free to ask me and I'll answer your questions. The last thing I'm going to show you are the restaurant to-go containers. I started a whole bunch of plants this past week, mostly tomatoes. There's some lettuce. Even though I have lettuce growing, I want to succession plant some more lettuce. And I'm reusing all my saran wrap, all my to-go containers. I have probably 5 varieties, I think, of tomato that I'm growing. I'll have plenty for myself, plenty to give to family and friends. I am so excited. I finally have some plants that are flowering that I started from seed. Some of you might already know what this is. This is a sweet alyssum. The variety is Tiny Tim. And one thing I've learned with gardening is that certain plants, such as alyssum, like cool weather. They actually thrive in cool weather. And I learned this just by going to a nursery in the springtime. I always thought that pansies were one of the only annuals that I could grow here in New Hampshire in my containers, my pots, my hanging baskets. And when I went to the nursery last year, lo and behold, they had lots of alyssum with the pansy. They even had Dusty Miller. So I made it a point this year to start certain plants earlier so that I can enjoy them in the spring and know that they will thrive in the nice cool weather. Here we have some Dusty Miller. I started this on February 8th. You can see I have a full tray of 72 here. One thing I wanted to mention was many of the plants that I'm showing you today, I have 2, 3, sometimes even 4 trays of the same plant. So even though I might only be showing you one full tray, just know that there's plenty more where that came from. So again, Dusty Miller likes nice cool weather. I planted plenty of the Dusty Miller so that I can get it right out in my yard in the early spring months. One thing I definitely need to do though is pot these guys up. You can see that the roots are coming out from the bottom of the pots. So I want to make sure that they are happy and free in a little larger pot. So I do plan on potting them up just so that they're happy for one more month before they actually can get planted outside. So a few years ago, it was the first time I ever grew dahlias from seed. I was so surprised at how easy it was to do that. And then this past winter was the first time that I tried storing my dahlia tubers that I had started from seed, and I was able to successfully store those tubers. And I put the tubers in my garage. The garage stays between 40 and 50 degrees. I stored the tubers in peat moss. And I just checked on them every month, gave them a little bit, a spritz of water, and they survived the winter just fine. So I have a total of 8 dahlias that I'm currently pre-sprouting for the main purpose of making sure that the tubers are viable, but also I'm planning on taking cuttings from these tubers. I've already taken a few of the cuttings, and I will be showing you in another video how I went ahead in taking the cuttings from the tubers in an effort to propagate more plants. Over here is celery. I've talked about this in previous videos. It's looking great actually. And again, that's from a celery piece that was left over from, in the kitchen. I wasn't using it anymore. It was just the bottom of the celery stalk. And it has roots on it. I'm planning on planting this out into my garden and seeing if it gets any bigger than what's here. And then over here, I have actually there's 5, there's one hidden over here, 5 violet plants that I got from my friend. And I'm very excited to see that there is some new growth going on all the plants. So they're thriving, they're doing really well. I also have some basil. I have 3 plants here. And I've taken cuttings off of some of the basil, and you can see, let me show you an example here. That with this basil, I took the cutting in the center, and just by taking the cutting in the center, it allowed the plant to branch out in 2 different directions. That's very good for many of the plants. Not all plants, but for many plants, if you do that, it just makes the plants bushier. Finally, this one last plant that's over here is a Vinca vine cutting that I took. I'm trying to propagate that from some Vinca vine that I overwintered in my garage. And if I'm successful, I plan on taking more cuttings of my Vinca vine. I have done that in the past and it has been successful for me. So I'm just trying to do that again this winter. So I planted a total of 4 geraniums from seed. They're just from the seed that I collected last year, so no special variety. In fact, I don't even remember what color they are. So this will be a nice surprise for all of us. If you remember, I also had geraniums that I overwintered in my basement, and I brought those dormant geraniums upstairs, and together we potted them up, and this is one of the 10 geraniums. Look how nice it looks. And you will notice right here, there is a little flower bud appearing. So exciting. So I started my Lobelia plants on February 9th, and I have a full tray of 72 here, and this is a white colored Lobelia. One thing I wanted to mention about Lobelia seeds is they're super tiny. And when I first started gardening, I got intimidated by super tiny seeds. Some plants that have super tiny seeds other than Lobelia include Alyssum, Snapdragon, Begonia, and those are all plants that I'm growing now. So I have learned that it is possible. They don't need to be pelleted. It just takes a little bit of patience and practice. The plants might not grow or thrive the first year, but don't give up on them. That's why I've had a lot of success. I've just not given up. I keep trying. And once I find a method that works for me, I just go with that. So next, what I'm showing you here is another Lobelia plant. This is called Crystal Palace. I also started it on February 8th, and this is a full tray of 72 of these plants. I think I have 4 or maybe 5 trays of this plant. And so one thing I'm thinking of doing with my Lobelia plants is I'm thinking of putting them towards the front of my borders along with the white Alyssum. I think that will look really pretty. And I definitely will be putting these in my container boxes, window boxes, things like that. One thing I want to mention about Lobelia is if you want a nice bushy plant, you definitely want to snip off, like this would be a good example. You want to snip off the tall pieces that are starting to grow out of the plant. And that will just help the plant branch out. So it's always scary to do that to plants, but trust me, it's better for the plant and you'll have a nice, healthier plant after that. All of these plants definitely need to get potted up into 3-inch pots. I have a lot of work ahead of me, I know. So here we're looking at some burgundy onion, and I planted these on February 7th. I originally put them in a to-go container that I got from a restaurant, and I sowed them very heavily in there. They would have been probably fine if the container was larger and deeper, but since it was very shallow, I found that I was watering the onion all the time. So rather than dealing with that, what I did was I took about 20 onions and put each of the 20 onions in these 3-inch pots. So I do have a total of, let's see, I have a total of 8 of the 3-inch pots, and each pot has about 20 onions in it. So I have about 160 burgundy onion. Here's some more onion. We have the sweet Spanish yellow Utah jumbo onion. That's a mouthful. And I have 11 of these 3-inch pots. Same thing, I put 20 plants in each of those pots, totaling 220 of these type of onions. Here's the little succulent plant that my daughter gave me that she got from college. And since it had little offshoots or little babies coming off of it, I went ahead and removed some of those little baby plants. And I'm going to see if they're going to root. I've never done it, but it looks like it should be a pretty easy process. So I am trying to propagate more of these succulent plants. Here I have a full tray, so 72 of a hot pink Vinca. And these seeds were collected on January 31st. I think I have 3 or 4 trays of this particular Vinca. It is such a beautiful plant. I have to say, probably of all the plants I've ever grown and given to my friends and my family, this is the plant that a lot of people want every year. So I really enjoy it, and I highly recommend, if you've never grown Vinca, to try to grow the annual Vinca plant. I've always grown a pink Vinca. I didn't really know that there was white Vinca until last year. I bought a packet of seeds, and it was supposed to be a mix of pink and white. It was mostly pink. There were like 2 plants in that whole mix that were white Vinca plants. And I gave those to my neighbor, and she grew them on. Eventually, the plants went to seed. I collected the seed, and now I have 60 white Vinca plants. I started these seeds on January 31st. So for these Vinca plants, these ones were ones that I had bought. They're called the Heatwave Blue with Eye. There are about 70 plants here, so I had a very good germination rate. And I started these seeds on January 31st, and I want to see if I can collect the seeds off of these plants. Hopefully I can. Here's my last tray of Vinca. This is called the Heatwave Apricot, and I have about 54 of those seeds in there. I also have 12 pink Vinca. I can't remember if they're the deep pink or what variety of pink they are, but they are a pink color Vinca. I have 12 of those. I started these on January 31st. Coleus is also another plant that has super teeny tiny seeds. But if you let your Coleus go to flower and they are a variety that will go to seed, then you should be able to collect the seeds off of those, which is what I did with these. That's why I just called them a Coleus mix. It truly is going to be just a mix of different types of Coleus. And I have a full tray of 72, and I started these on March 2nd. And even though they're very small right now, they will totally take off. And once they start taking off, you wait and see. I will show you the different variety and the different colors of the leaves that are there. It's just amazing that right now they all look green, but it's going to be a totally different game the next time I show you in a walkthrough. So I have about 49 Coleus that have like a dark brown center and a green edge to them. I don't know the variety. I collected them from somewhere last year. And so I'm excited to see what they look like once they start getting a little bit larger. I also have 10 Coleus Kong Empire seeds in here, and then, or plants, I should say. And then I also have at the very end, I have some Verbena growing over here. And there's a total of 10 there. I started them on March 2nd, and it's a red color Verbena. And I also wanted to mention for all of my Coleus that the Coleus were started on March 2nd. So I have 27 more of the Coleus mix, and then I have 39 of the Coleus Calocha Rose. Same thing, I started all my Coleus on March 2nd. So these plants look a little bit bigger than the Coleus. We have 17 Ageratum, and they are a purple color. I started these on March 2nd. My hope for these, because I only have about 17 plants, which are right here, My hope is once they get a little bit larger, I plan on taking cuttings from them and propagating more plants through cuttings. If I am able to do that, I will be sure to share that with you. I also have over here some Verbena, and it's just a mix of different colors from seeds that I collected from plants last year. And the Ageratum was started on March 2nd, same with the Verbena. And then I also have 30 more of the Lobelia Crystal Palace down over here. On February 9th, I started all of these Ford Hook Snapdragons. It's a full tray of 72. They are getting quite tall. So one thing I'm planning to do is I'm planning to snip them down a little bit. And the reason for snipping them is you want a nice bushy plant. A few things that are very important with all of your plants, but especially Snapdragons, is you want a nice bushy plant. You also want a very strong plant. So what I've been doing is I've been running the fan every day during the same time when my lights are on. And that just helps for the plants to be nice and stocky and sturdy. So I think you can see right here, these have a nice sturdy stem. And that just helps them quite a bit for when they go outside. I'll make sure to show you in a video when it's time for me to go ahead and start cutting these Snapdragons back. I did start that process already, but I'll show you when I do it the next time. Here I have some really pretty red Snapdragon. I collected the seeds last year. You'll notice that the stalks are all red. And some of the Snapdragons that I have that are pink or yellow, they don't have as red of a stalk. So it's really fun to see the different color within the leaves and within the stem of the Snapdragons. These are red Snapdragons that I started on February 9th, and it's a full tray of 72. I have about 18 of the red Snapdragons in this corner over here, but then the rest of these Snapdragons are a pink color Snapdragon, and they are looking pretty good. I'm very happy with overall with how all my Snapdragons are looking. They were all started on February 9th. So with this whole tray of Snapdragons, which is a dark red Snapdragon, what I did was I already went ahead and clipped them back. And again, the whole purpose for doing that is to help promote side growth so that you end up with more blossoms. And in this particular example that I was showing, you could see that there was some side growth happening on those plants. So that's the reason why all of these Snapdragons are on the shorter side compared to the other Snapdragons that you've seen before. It's for the simple reason that I've already cut them back to promote a stronger, healthier plant with more side growth and blossoms eventually. And just by doing that, every time you cut a plant back like this, especially the Snapdragon, it will delay the blooming by 2 to 3 weeks. But seeing that it's only the middle of March, I'm perfectly happy with going ahead and doing this process right now. I know it's better for the plant. Even though it might be hard for you to do that to a nice plant, to cut it back, it will be better for the plant in the long run. So all the Snapdragons I've been showing you were started on February 9th. Over here, we just have 30 more dark red Snapdragons. And down over here are some yellow Snapdragons. These were all from plants whose seeds I collected last year. And I don't have a ton of the yellow. I have about 32 yellow Snapdragons. I am hoping to propagate more yellow Snapdragons through cuttings. So I'm going to be real with you. We're all busy. I'm even busy with all my plants. So sometimes some plants just do not get pricked out of their little containers where I started them. So these are a Snapdragon mix. They're just a mix of different colors because I randomly collected the seeds of Snapdragons. And it's a tray of 72. I have 2 or 3 of these trays. Even though these Snapdragons were started on February 9th, the same time as all the other Snapdragons that I've shown you, I just didn't get around to pricking them out of the container that I started all the seeds in. So they will eventually grow. They will be fine, but that is the reason why these are super small. As well as in the other trays that I showed you of Snapdragons, you might have noticed some were really tall and big, some were maybe even this small. That's the reason why. It's just that sometimes I just didn't get to pricking out the little plant out of the tray that I started it in and transplanting it into the 6-pack until later. So I show you the good, bad, and the ugly. So I have here, let's start with the cute little plants. I have 6 wax begonia that are over here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And actually, they're getting pretty big. But let me tell you, the seed of a wax begonia is dust. It is, I think, the smallest seed that I can find out there. And every year I say I'm not going to grow it, but I love it. And then it looks so pretty. So clearly, these bigger plants need to be pricked out of these 6-packs and put into a bigger pot. I'll eventually get to doing that. Last year, I planted so many wax begonia seeds and I had so many plants. This year, I have 6. It's all right. You know, if I have time, I'll plant some more, but if not, I'll have 6 plants. Now, the plants look really good, but if you look carefully, there's definitely some mildew or algae, some sort of growth growing on these, on the soil. My experience has been it's not harmful for the plant. It's just for us to look at it. It's an eyesore. The plants don't seem to care. So since the plants don't seem to care, I usually get over it pretty quickly. So what these plants are over here they are a beautyberry bush. And I have 53 of them. And they were started on January 31st. They do need to be potted into 3-inch pots. They are a perennial, I believe, I will find out, in my zone 5B. I did start some last year in my zone, so I'm anxious to see if they overwintered. But I have plenty of these plants, so I'm excited about that. Look very carefully right there. That is a sprout from a dahlia tuber. What I'm doing is I am pre-sprouting my dahlia tubers that I stored in the winter in my garage. And these were sprouted around late February. So I do check them every few days. And once the sprouts get a little bit bigger, I plan to pot up the tuber into 3-inch pots. I grew 4 butterfly pea plants. The variety is called Blue Queen. Well, when I say I grew 4, I have 4 that have sprouted so far. I may have a few more that sprout, but for right now, 4 have sprouted, which I'm very happy with. I started them on March 2nd. I've heard that you can make a nice blue tea with them. I want to give that a try this summer. So we're outside right now, and I wanted to show you how my plants are doing that can handle the cold temperature. During the daytime, typically the temperature is above freezing, and the days that it is, I like to bring my plants out. During the nighttime, I leave the plants in the garage. Behind me, you can see a big cart that my husband and I created, and it's a temporary way of wheeling the plants in and out just for additional shelter. But you can see in my yard that we currently have a ton of snow still on the ground. So even though it is still winter with spring right around the corner, I am still busy working on all my plants, both indoors as well as outdoors. So I want to show you what I have going on out here. So on the top shelf, what I have going on are a lot of spring bulbs. There's a mix of different daffodils as well as tulips. I can't grow tulips in the ground here simply because the deer would eat them. And the tulips are fine in the pots. I just plan on growing them in the pots all the time. And for the daffodils, I like a little bit of color. As you can see, I already have 1 daffodil blooming, one of the tete-a-tetes. It's so cute. So what I've been doing is bringing these tulips and daffodils in and out as well. But in the next week or week and a half, the daytime temperatures are going to slowly be increasing and getting a little bit warmer. So my goal is to get these spring bulbs brought outside, and I'm going to put them on my porch. And if I need to, I'm going to cover them with protection at nighttime. So that's on the first shelf. On the second shelf, I have a whole bunch of pansies, a ton of pansies. I'm so excited. And I'm basically growing 2 varieties of pansies. I am growing a mix of different colors, and those are just from seeds that I collected from last year. They're mostly purple and yellow. And then I'm also growing the celestial blue pansies. What I'll do is I will pop up on the screen a picture of what these pansies look like, as well as when I started the seeds for the pansies, just so you know what they look like now and when they were started. Finally, on the lower shelf are my Ranunculus. I will also pop up on the screen when I pre-sprouted the Ranunculus corms. Next up are 2 different varieties of lettuce. And I also have some cilantro that I'm growing here as well. Since I was running out of room on the larger cart, I ended up using a smaller cart. And what I have on there is a Primrose that I recently bought. I bought a pink one last year, and it is a perennial in my area, so I bought a purple one for this year. I have some more Daffodils. And then a bunch of plants that I was trying to overwinter in my garage. I have the Licorice plant. It looks a little sad, but I did look at it closer, and it does look like it's still alive. So we'll see. We'll see how it does. And then I have some Dichondra Silver Falls, which is right over here. And then we have some Vinca vine. I've been able to successfully propagate that from cuttings. So I'm planning to do that with most of these plants. I want to be able to propagate cuttings, so I have plenty of plants. Some more Dichondra Silver Falls right here. That looks really good. And then I have an ivy plant over here. That looks really pretty. I just think some of these will look great in pots, different containers, and hanging baskets. I have a mum. I think it's a purple colored mum. And the key with growing mums in this area is in Zone 5 in New Hampshire is you want to get them in the ground in the spring so that they have plenty of time to establish their roots. That's pretty much the only way to overwinter them outside. So that's what my plan is to get those planted in the spring in the ground. Over here I have a hibiscus, and you can see that it is starting to send out some new shoots. A couple of more licorice plants over here. A few things that didn't make it, it looks like. And I have 2 different varieties of rosemary plants that I'm also hoping to propagate from cuttings. On the bottom shelf, all by itself, is another mum. I don't remember the color of it, but I will also be getting that into the ground this spring. I always joke with my friends and I say that we all have some sort of problem. And my problem happens to be plant problems. And I think that's a good problem to have. So make sure to subscribe, like, follow my YouTube channel. I plan on giving a tour every few weeks just to keep you updated with how the plants are doing, how I'm fertilizing them, and hardening them off, and eventually getting them out in my landscape. One thing I also wanted to add was the reason I grow so many plants is not only for making my yard beautiful. I also like to give plants away to family and friends. There are a number of people that I give my plants to, and they really enjoy them. I also have an area in town where I work on a flower bed, and I like to volunteer my time there, and I plan on bringing a lot of plants there as well. Thank you, and make it a great day with gardening.